Hello, everybody, and welcome back to Documentary Club. I'm Jeff Jones, and with me, as always, is Jack. Welcome, Jack. How are you doing?
Doing very well. Welcome to everyone that's joined us in the live chat. It's going to be this is a relatively short, it's a one-off documentary, but it's an interesting one with, I think it's got questions.
We're focusing on the murder of Steve McNair, the mystery behind what happened to Steve McNair. I never really followed this case.
No, I didn't
In
either.
fact, I didn't remember who or what was responsible or, the timeline of this. And this one kind of fell through the cracks for me. So I'm glad that we got a chance to take a look at this one. Interesting documentary related to the murder, as I said, of Steve McNair, also known as Steve Air McNair.
And
the only other, and
his girlfriend.
His girlfriend. There's always information that's not included in documentaries. I think that can be said about this one, but for what it's worth, I think they lay out pretty much what happened, minus we don't know who necessarily killed Steve McNair. And this documentary does kind of gives us some hints. Let's say that at least gives us some hints about what possibly could have happened. Let's get right to it though, Jack. Did you have a clip that you wanted to pick first?
Probably should do the 911 call.
Somebody's been shot. There's two people. And they're both appear to be deceased? I think so, sir. My name is Robert Gay.
I take 1 foot inside and I see somebody. I see 2 blood stains. I see blood on his temple. And I'm like, oh my God.
I could see a female on the floor. And if you looked at her a little closer, you noticed there was a gun on the floor.
And soon we saw top police, spokespeople, officials showing up. My photographer, he starts telling me, I'm getting some messages that this might be Steve McNair.
What? Steve McNair?
What are you talking about? I've been out of service. Steve was murdered.
For those of you that don't know, that's Jeff Fisher, his former head coach of the Tennessee Titans. And whenever we have a high-profile murder or double murder in this case, it always seems to be a little more shocking, especially with someone who's so beloved by the community, and it just became such a shock. And I think for the Tennessee area, it's just unthinkable. Can you imagine a retired quarterback living in your neighborhood, living in your city? So it was a real shock. It was just, I think that was the best way to describe it.
Really humble beginnings for this guy. He just worked his ass off, and he was talented. He had a real head for his position within the game, and he worked really hard.
And the documentary, I think, shows a little bit of that in the footage of just how he approached the game of football. Was tough as nails on the court, but was a nice guy. I mean, on the court, on the field, but was a nice guy off the field.
Yeah, that's right. His one, I guess, I can't really call it a failing, but he liked women. Now, this guy was married. I'm not trying to sugarcoat that. It is what it is.
Yeah, I think you're right. That really his one and only vice seemed to be women.
And I think it's important to point out, I don't know if I do, in the notes I took anyway, but there was somebody else that was there first before the guy that's on the 911 call. He had dropped by, saw somebody he thought was Steve asleep on the couch, goes to the kitchen, grabs a beer, comes back out, and he sees a shell casing laying on the floor, and he finds them, and he gets out, and he calls this other guy that's on the 911 call, Steve's other friend, I should say.
Right.
He says, hey, man, something's wrong. So he goes down there, and he's the one that made the discovery and made the call. Yeah, an hour passed before 911 was called, and that's problematic in itself, but, I guess I understand it. I kind of get it, but it's not good.
I think a little bit of background on Steve McNair himself would be a good clip to talk about. We mentioned a little bit about it, but the documentary does a little bit more of a thorough job.
Yeah.
We had a lot of problems.
Jeff Fisher is the new head coach. He is 36 years old. What we do know.
I was most excited about having the number 3 pick. We needed a franchise quarterback.
Steve Air McNair's achievements are worthy of Heisman Trophy consideration.
Steve loved that atmosphere, and he was must watch.
And he takes off. He's dangerous. Look at him in the 30. He's at about the 15-yard line.
I was blocking for him, so I didn't see it during the game during real time.
His job, protect McNair at all costs. Under pressure, gets away from it again.
I mean, I would see the man throw it 70 yards off his back foot.
Steve would take the shotgun snap and take a look around and then go run. People liked him. He had the capability to excel at this level.
The Houston Oilers select quarterback from Alcorn State, Steve McNair.
Such a great
We're
moment.
just getting started. With the exception of the ending, it couldn't have worked out any better.
He's like a freight train. If he decides to run, you better get him at the legs. Otherwise, he's going to take your head off. I mean, Steve McNair was a big man, and he knew how to move and throw.
What a talent. And to come from this obscure, not completely obscure, but like Jeff Fisher just said, we had to go to the college to get footage of him. It wasn't available. We had to physically go to the college to watch game tape. So the next clip that I wanted to share was Charles Robinson, the Nashville detective.
Yeah, that's good.
There were people of interest that we wanted to talk to for Steve's murder.
Wayne Neely is the person who walked in on the 4th of July and discovered the scene.
He saw Steve's SUV there, decided to stop and go in and try to talk to Steve.
When you open the door and tell me what you saw. Son laying on the couch, so he was asleep, I swear. I didn't think it was Steve.
Where did you go?
Straight to the refrigerator. Had a beer.
Okay.
Coming back out, I saw a shell casing.
This first guy, Neely, there's already some strangeness going on with his story. He grabs a beer without like introducing himself to, hey guys, I'm here.
Well,
how you guys doing?
I get that. But a little bit to the other end of that, it kind of comes out that this was a kind of a crash pad party place. This is Steve's kind of side house. He wanted away from his home with his wife and kids.
So maybe it was normal for him to show up and be like, oh, there's somebody crashed on the couch.
Right.
I'm just, I saw his car, but he saw his car here. And I think the detective makes a good point. Wouldn't you expect to see him if you stopped because you saw his car, and then when you went in, you didn't expect to see him?
Right.
There's just a little bit of a weirdness. And I'm not saying that.
I agree.
I'm not saying that he did anything wrong or, you can stop at someone's house thinking that they're home, go in and go, oh, he must not be here. I'm going to grab a beer and wait for him, or grab a beer and chill out for a minute and maybe give him a call, or maybe he's up, in the other room, or, whatever. I get that. But yeah, I think you can see why he's a person of interest. He's the one that found him, but he didn't call 911. He called another friend to call 911.
That's just odd to me. It's just odd. I agree.
Talk about Big Daddy, who played with Steve McNair.
Yeah.
Played football at Alcorn with Steve and was a business partner with Steve.
Wayne Neely calls Robert Gaddy instead of calling 911.
Big Daddy, have you talked to Steve? I said, well, he said, we got a problem. Something don't happen at the apartment. But I just wanted to make sure my best friend was all right. You didn't see him out and about, that I wasn't either with him or far behind. We was going through one of our ups and downs. We had told each other off, and I know if that hadn't happened, he probably would have called me if anything was going down. It was a check with 2 signatures on it for $13,000 that me and Steve got into an argument over.
A lot of people had questions about the time that sort of elapsed before 911 was called. After.
With McNeely,
why didn't he just call 911?
And he makes it sound like I saw a gun shell, but then he didn't investigate anymore. He didn't look who it was. He didn't go, who's sleeping on the, hey, what's with the gun shell? Well, he didn't wake those people up.
Right.
You just let them sleep through that. I got a problem with that. I think that's your line, Jack, but I'm stealing it from you. I got a real problem with that.
No, I get it, man. I don't understand it. And he's just gonna leave and call someone else. Come on.
for Big Daddy, Giddy, I don't feel like he's got anything to do with it. I feel like he was, that's just my feeling at this point in the documentary. The sobbing seemed real to me. I feel like he was his friend from a long time, and a $13,000 check wasn't going to make him kill. That's my feeling.
I don't think so either. And it could have been something they could have even worked out, later on, if had time been able to progress.
Right. I could see how an investigator might want to key in on that and really dig down and drill down on this. And, you had a falling out with him, but it seemed so realistic when we look at that footage of Big Daddy kind of, man, if I had been there, this wouldn't have happened. But we had a falling out and we've been fighting. And so it's just like, oh man, I'm not his bodyguard, but I kind of was.
That's where, a lot of people are correct. You have to be careful dealing with money and somebody that's your friend.
Absolutely.
Unfortunately, it does cause problems. So, but him being involved, I don't see that at all.
Yeah, for me, that's not where I'm at.
He was visibly hurting.
I'm more suspicious about the other guy, McFinley or whatever.
Yeah, McNeely. Absolutely.
McNeely.
Why the hell didn't he just call the freaking cops? Just call them. Be done with it. Come on, man.
Here's an interesting sports kind of factoid or trivia that they moved the team in 97. From 97 and 98, they were known as the Tennessee Oilers. And then in 1999, they changed to the Tennessee Titans.
Correct.
For some reason in my mind, I thought they changed their name when they moved, but okay, I see. So they do identify the woman with Steve McNair, and it is one of his girlfriends. They've been dating for a while, or they've had it on and off again. So let's watch a little bit of that. We find out who she is.
A 20-year-old woman by the name of Sahel Kazemi.
Police describe Kazemi as a friend of McNair's. They tell us she worked at Dave & Buster's. She was essentially his girlfriend.
Have she ever talked to you in the past about her and Steve's relationship?
Yeah, I know that she cared a lot about him. He treated her really nicely.
They had conversations about adopting kids one day together and really building a life together. And they started to really, what seemed like, fall for each other.
Here we lay out that they had a real relationship. I think when I first heard she worked at Dave & Buster's, not that there's anything wrong with working there, but if you're dating a former NFL quarterback and you're still working at Dave & Buster's, then you're probably not that close to the NFL quarterback, because he'd be like, let me take care of you. You don't need to, we'll find something better for you. Or I have connections. We can get you, and that's exactly what happened. The guy said, yeah, she stopped working here very much. She wasn't working here very often because he was taking care of her.
Right. She's driving a Cadillac Escalade.
She didn't get that from Dave & Buster's.
No, she did not.
And so for people that are watching this premiere, we're going to do the live next week. And so we're going to talk a little bit about on our live. We won't have a live after this premiere, just a scheduling thing. But next week, we're going to kind of cover a couple cases on the live. And we're going to talk a little bit more about this one next week. So maybe we can dig in a little bit for the live about her backstory a little bit, if there's any information available.
Yeah, that's a good idea.
There's a new character that's introduced in the documentary, and that is Jenny's ex-boyfriend, who happens to be a huge Steve McNair fan.
Yeah, man. Could
you imagine, like, your sports hero,
yeah,
steals your girlfriend?
Yeah, that's crazy.
Not to say that he is a suspect, but I think the cops go, well, we got to look into him.
We were going to games left and right. We broke up, but we were in a lease. And she said, Steve McNair came into her job. I asked her if she got an autograph because she knew he was my favorite player. How am I supposed to sit down and watch football and eat some wings? You know what I mean? My ex-girlfriend, who I'm still in love with, was now going to be with my favorite football player of all time.
You and her kind of sort of seem like trying to get back together and talking, right?
Well,
Okay.
it was really wishy-washy.
We're trying to get back together. It means like she's trying to play both sides.
You talking about did we have an argument?
Did y'all talk?
Okay, I'm sorry, not to interrupt them, but he keeps interrupting this guy, and it's really
Right.
pissing me off.
It pissed me off too. It was just wrong. He asked
Let
him a
the guy
question, then
finish
wouldn't let
and
him
answer.
he wouldn't let him fucking talk. Come on, man.
You ask him a question, let him answer the damn question.
I agree. Yeah. Really irritating.
And I'm not here to just point out that the cops are all wrong or bad, but when I see something, I'm gonna say something, and that really bothered me. To me, that's this close from bullying.
What's exactly what he was doing?
Talk about that?
No, basically.
And keep in mind, I'm gonna tell you something.
He didn't even let him finish again, man.
Right. He's bullying.
We've already reviewed text messages between you and her. And
Well, I definitely texted.
Well, explain something to me. Explain to me your MySpace page.
Never let anything or anyone come in between you and the one that you love, because when you do, you lose everything. That was months ago. I still had feelings for Jenny, and I felt like that I had let somebody come in between us, so.
If I was to ask you on the polygraph when you were at the apartment that night.
Oh no, there's not a possibility. I had no knowledge of it.
I mean, it's fair to see him as a suspect. I don't know if a quote that you write on MySpace or Facebook or whatever, because you had a bad breakup and now that's motive to kill someone.
No, you're gonna need more than that. I'm sorry, that's not gonna carry the day.
Yeah, and then again, we see bully cop trying to bully him with the polygraph thing, which we've had lengthy discussions about polygraphs on this podcast, about how they're used as a battering ram and not as a scalpel tool to try to find the truth. They use it to intimidate and bully people.
Yeah.
And already, I'm not a fan of this detective. Not a fan at all.
No, he's way too off the mark for me. There's so much that isn't even done yet, and they're treating this guy like he did it. Almost. I mean, this cop is clearly getting up his ass.
I didn't feel that tone. Now, we didn't see all the interviews. We didn't see the full length of any of these. But I didn't feel that tone come across in McNeely.
Well, it didn't. And, you're trying to get the cooperation of someone. And I can tell you right now, if I was treated that way by a detective trying to get information, I wouldn't tell him that fucking thing. My name, lawyer.
That's it.
Here's my name. I want a lawyer now.
Yeah. Goodbye. Like,
You're gonna talk to me.
I'm willing to cooperate.
Yeah.
But you got to stop interrupting me, and you got to stop treating me like I'm some sort of scum.
Right. I'm
here to help you, and you won't let me finish a sentence, bro.
Yeah. Can't help you. Lawyer.
Sorry. Find another detective. I'm not talking to this guy. Behind the scenes throughout this whole documentary is really laying out the backstory of the actual sport and how he's excelling in the game. And they win a playoff game, and
they win
several playoff games, right? And so it just kind of adds to that mystique of who Steve McNair is. They show some evidence photos, and there's a little bit more of a backstory about the girlfriend.
When she was growing up in Iran, her mother had been murdered.
While she was in school, they started having all kinds of problems with her. She started dating Norfleet, and for the first time, she stabilized.
Police released a lot of text messages between Kazemi and McNair in the days leading up to their deaths.
She was stressed out, but it felt like there was something else.
I want to know how you found out about me, because I like to keep myself secret.
How long you and Steve have been talking? I think everything went downhill after Jenny started to realize there was other women.
She questioned him about it, and he denied and everything else. I don't know who this girl was. After that, I think he really broke her heart.
A few days before Steve was shot, he was stopped in a vehicle with a female. She was driving the vehicle.
That night that she got that DUI, the one thing that happened, the fact that she probably made Steve upset.
I love you. All right. He's just being honest, I think.
Can you tell me when he says, don't let the cops know anything, what does that mean?
I don't know. And why did they just let him go, get a ride and get out? I don't know. It's not explained in the documentary.
Does that mean don't let them know that we're dating, that we're involved, or? And that is a part where the documentary leaves us wanting.
Yeah, maybe it's something we can maybe find out. I don't know that we can for sure, but maybe.
I don't either, because if she's not talking and he's not talking, we don't know what the hell they meant. But I mean, I'm sure there's speculation online, but
maybe that private investigator dove off into this some that we didn't get to see in the documentary. I don't know that.
Unfortunately, I'm starting to think that murder-suicide hasn't been ruled out at this point. I don't think it's ever ruled out. And with the finding out about the other women, that's stressful. Some other stressor that the ex-boyfriend was saying. Then she gets a DUI and he's unhelpful. And you know what I'm saying? And so all this is stressing her out to the max. I'm not saying that gives her permission to shoot him and kill him, but is that what we're seeing here? Was this a murder-suicide?
Well, that's kind of the conclusion they came to. I don't know the timeline of how quickly, but I don't think it was that long. I don't know if you want to play any of that police PC about the deaths.
Yeah, let's play that one.
And then the really graphic photos come up.
While it is clear that Steve McNair's death is a homicide, I would expect that it will be a number of days before the classification is placed on Ms. Kazemi's death. We want to learn the initial purchaser, try to identify the trail of ownership.
Keep in the back of your mind, everyone, the trail of ownership of this gun, because it becomes significant later on.
As we went into the investigation into the gun, we traced it back to the pawn shop where it was purchased.
Okay, who did you sell it to?
A guy named Adrian Gilliam.
What happened to it a couple of days ago?
I sold it to some young lady.
Yeah, this is a picture of Sahel Kazemi. Does that look like the young lady that you sold the gun to?
That's exactly the lady I sold it to.
Kazemi bought the weapon the evening of last Thursday, July 2nd. Only hours after being arrested for DUI.
Were you here Friday when she was?
I was. She seemed sort of down. And I said, is everything all right? I'll just quote her. She said, my life has just turned to shit. She just ended.
Ooh.
Yeah. There's, but this story's much deeper about the guy that sold her the gun, but we'll get to that.
I can feel it building in her, all these stressors that keep adding up. Take that on face value. The gun that was used to kill Steve McNair was bought by his 20-year-old girlfriend. What does that say to you?
Right. She's at her wit's end.
That doesn't sound like McNeely now. You know what I mean? It kind of crosses McNeely off the list for me. It crosses Big Daddy off the list for me.
Yep.
And it puts the focus straight on the girlfriend.
That's right. Private investigator that gets hired and what he uncovers. Now, he's a former cop. He's not a cop now, but he's a former cop that dives into this case.
The first mistake was believing Adrian Gilliam, convicted felon of murder and armed robbery. They talked to him for 7 minutes with his fiance sitting right next to him. Told police I sold the gun to a girl. I didn't even know her name.
That is a really good point.
It is a good point.
We just take the word from him,
yep.
And no one can confirm that. She can't deny it.
That's right. Take his word, move on, you're done. Well, there's quite a bit more to that story.
I got a problem with that.
No doubt.
I wanted to tell you, honestly, but I didn't want, she was sitting right there, so I had to say something. You know what I'm saying?
I'm looking at some text messages as well.
Cell phone records reveal Kazemi and Adrian Gilliam Jr. exchanged a total of 203 phone calls and text messages in the 3 weeks leading up to the deaths. Gilliam was one of the last people to speak with Kazemi alive. A 3-minute call he made on July 4th at 12:02 a.m.
She said she was downtown.
Hour and a half later, she's dead, Steve's dead, and it's a gun that's tied to him.
I had just left my friend's house.
Like, what's your friend's name?
Tony Smith.
I ain't gonna lie for nobody, okay?
Okay.
That didn't happen.
His alibi shot. He's the last person to call her. It's his gun. It's not rocket science.
Now I'm starting to shift away from the girlfriend, and I'm looking more at him, the convicted murderer, felon.
But to this guy, there's no connection.
I just don't see it.
No, and
Then
there's
why
no
would he
connection.
call 911? Why wouldn't he just run away?
That's right. There's just no connection to him at all, though. This other guy being involved, finding out all these phone calls and text messages with Jenny and this Adrian, that raises a huge red flag for me. Huge red flag.
Yeah, it really does. It shifts my idea about
Murder,
Jenny
suicide.
to this, murder suicide to a double homicide. It really does.
Yeah, absolutely.
Now, what's his motive? I don't know. Maybe he was a little more involved with Jenny than he's willing to admit, and that's why he didn't want to say anything in front of his fiance, because that was his other girlfriend. And he got jealous of Steve McNair and her and said, you know what? You think you're all tough? You think you're this big, great quarterback? Well, I'm going to show you a thing or two.
Maybe. I mean, we just
don't know.
We just don't know. And I mean, Steve could have been there, and her being on the phone with this guy, and he just said, "Who the hell he's talking to?" And we just don't know. It does raise questions, though, for me.
I'm going to play a little bit more of this, and then that's probably about it.
Only if I had an argument, I would have been there for him.
All of a sudden, I started seeing him on CNN asking for his resume. Show him how many murders did you work. His first investigation was, guess what? This Steve McNair.
Seems a little insecure.
A little hostile.
Yeah. And this is the cop that we had issues with twice with the way he investigated.
Well, I just think it should have been looked into further before they could just say, hey, this is definitely a murder-suicide, because this does raise questions. Unless there's some forensic proof that's not included into the documentary, I got a problem with how it's laid out. That's just me, though.
Looks like I want to play this bonus clip here of Jeff Fisher talking, and then that'll probably, wrap it up for us.
Before every football game, right before we went out, we pulled the team up and hold hands. So I always kneel down and grab Steve's hand. We said the Lord's Prayer. There's a moment of silence after, and that's it. And then we said the Lord's Prayer with Steve one last time. Thine kingdom, power, glory forever. And I felt like that brought some closure for people together one last time.
Yeah, that's touching.
Very.
Good job, Coach. I feel like this is one of those documentaries that could have been a second episode. I feel like we need a little bit more information on this one. I'm left wanting more. So from a strictly documentary, a viewer side of it, not about the case, but just a documentary, I want more. I'm left wanting.
Right. I mean, I think they
There's
covered
episode 2.
I think they covered his background and the football aspect of it pretty well. But as far as the case itself, the murder case, I'm like you. I need more to really get my head wrapped around and be satisfied. Right now, I'm not. I'm just not. I need more.
We need a little bit more information on Adrian. I think I'm going to try to dig up a little bit more on him, and maybe I'll go to the conspiracy sites and see what people are saying about different ideas before we talk about this on a live.
Right.
But yeah, I mean, short documentary. I guess we'll wrap it up here, Jack. Why don't you share if you have any kind of wrap up comments?
Well, I think we've pretty well covered it all. I'm really torn on the Nashville Police Department's decision to call this, or the medical examiner, whoever, say this is a murder-suicide. I'm not convinced of that, given the contact between the multiple. If it was one or two calls, okay, and a text message or two, okay, but to have this going back for 3 weeks, and the last call that Jenny gets is from this Adrian guy, I got a problem here. There's something's not adding up for me. That's kind of where I'm going to kind of leave it.
And we don't know what was said on that phone call, right?
No.
Where are you? This is the address. Why don't you come over? We're having a party, or whatever. I'm with Steve. Oh, I know where he lives. I dropped you off there that one time. I know where he lives.
Right.
We don't know. So
no.
But taking that guy's word for it Adrian's
No.
word for it, that's not working for me.
No, me neither.
All right, you guys, well, let us know what you thought about this one in the comment section. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Again, this is Documentary Club, and we just covered Untold, the Murder of Air McNair. I'm Jeff Jones.
And I'm Jack.
And we'll see you guys on the next one.